My name is Linda Marin Hall, 34 years old. I still remember the moment my phone buzzed, that Wednesday afternoon, the kind of quiet moment where life feels manageable right before it twists. It was my mom. "Hey, sweetie. Just a heads up, things are really tight this year. We won't be able to get anything for Emily. Hope she understands. Love you." The message felt casual, almost breezy, like she was canceling brunch plans, not telling her only granddaughter she wouldn't even get a $5 present. I reread it twice. My fingers hovered over the screen, but I couldn't bring myself to type anything yet. Not out of anger, out of disbelief. The message was so short, so stripped of warmth, it almost felt rehearsed. Emily is 8. The age where magic still lives in pencil letters tucked under pillows for Santa, where cookies are left out about 2 nights early, just in case he's running ahead this year, where she still draws little hearts next to her grandparents' names. She hadn't even asked for much. A Disney puzzle, a sketch pad, glitter markers, everyday things, the kind you pick up while grocery shopping. So when I tucked her into the couch that evening, I told her as gently as I could, "Grandma and Grandpa won't be doing gifts this year. Things are a little hard for them." She nodded in that quiet way kids do when they're trying so hard to be understanding. She didn't cry, didn't pout. She just said, "Okay," soft and small, like she was trying not to make me feel worse. The next morning, I was folding laundry, one of those grounding chores you do without thinking, when Emily walked in holding her tablet. She wasn't crying. She wasn't confused. She just stood there with this stunned sort of stillness, and then she turned the screen toward me. It was a Facebook post from my mom. 2 brand new iPhones. Bowed, boxed, tagged. The caption read, "Merry Christmas to our favorite grandbabies. You deserve the best. Favorite grandbabies." I didn't know whether Emily understood what those words really meant, but I watched something inside her shift. Her face didn't crumple. It hardened in a way a child's face shouldn't. Then she walked out of the room without saying a word. That moment, more than the phones, more than the caption, hit me like a punch to the chest. I sat on the floor with a half-folded towel in my hands, staring at nothing, feeling the kind of anger that grows roots. What nobody knew, not my parents, not my sister, not anyone outside my little bubble, was that I had been paying their phone bill for 5 years. 5 years. It started the month my dad lost his job and said he was just in a rough spot for a bit. I offered to add them to my family plan. It was supposed to be temporary, a few months at most, but months blurred into years. My bill auto-paid quietly while they took cruises, bought new TVs, and now gifted iPhones to their favorite grandbabies. Something inside me settled, not in rage, but in clarity. I stood up, walked to my laptop, logged into the carrier's website, and shut off every single line I paid for. Mine stayed on. Theirs didn't. It took 30 seconds. At exactly 9 o'clock a.m. the next morning, the pounding started. Not knocking. Pounding. I already knew who it was. When I opened the door halfway, my dad was standing there, red-faced, breathing like he'd sprinted from the car. "You shut off our phones?" he barked, furious in a way he somehow hadn't been when telling me Emily didn't matter enough for a gift. I could have imagined him being embarrassed, or confused, or even apologetic. But no, he was livid. Livid like I'd stolen something from him. Livid like he was the one betrayed. "They said things were tight," I told him calmly, "so I figured you didn't need the lines anymore." He exploded, words flying, accusations sharp and practiced. "You're overreacting. You're jealous of Lisa's kids. You've always been emotional. This is childish." With every sentence, he made himself the victim and me the problem. The volume rose. My hands shook, but not with fear, with restraint. "It's not about the phones," I said finally, my voice softer than my heartbeat. "It's about Emily." He rolled his eyes like the name itself annoyed him. "Emily will be fine if you stop putting things in her head." That was it. Something snapped. Not violently, not loudly, but decisively. "For 5 years," I said, "I've paid your phones while you pretend she doesn't exist." He froze for a second, just long enough for me to see the truth land. Then the defense returned. The denial, the blaming, the familiar pivot that always made me doubt myself growing up. But not this time, not anymore. "We're done," I told him. "Not just with the phone bill, with all of it." He left swearing, muttering threats under his breath, slamming my door so hard the frame shook. I stood there in the silent aftermath, heart pounding, breath steady. I thought that was the end, but deep down some small instinct whispered that my family has never, ever let go that easily. And this was only the first ripple of a storm they were already preparing behind my back. When the door slammed behind him, the silence in my house didn't feel peaceful. It felt charged, like air just after lightning strikes. I didn't cry. I didn't second-guess myself. I just stood there, replaying every word, every accusation, every excuse he threw at me. Somewhere deep inside, I already knew the next move wasn't going to come from me. It was going to come from them, and they were going to rewrite the story before it even had time to settle. By that night, my phone buzzed again. A message from my sister Lisa. Mom and Dad are really upset. Maybe you could have just talked to them first. Talked. As if 5 years of paying their bills in silence weren't enough talking. As if Emily's face that morning hadn't said more than words ever could. I didn't answer. I didn't need to, because I knew exactly what was happening. They were getting ready to paint me as the villain. And right on schedule, someone else rang my phone 2 days later. My brother Matt. No warning, no text, just a call. The last person in the family who didn't get involved unless the ground was already cracking. Hey, I answered, trying to sound normal. What the hell is going on? He asked, not accusing, not angry, just confused in that honest way he had, the way that always made me want to tell him the truth. What did they say? I asked. He sighed. Mom called me crying, said you snapped, said you shut their phones off for no reason, said you're jealous of Lisa's kids and that you're putting stuff in Emily's head. She said you've been unstable. There it was, the word they love to use. Unstable, emotional, dramatic. The labels they slapped on me whenever they needed an easy explanation for their own bad behavior. What did you say? I asked quietly. I let her talk, Matt said. Then I asked one thing. Did you get new iPhones for Lisa's kids? That silence on the other end of his call must have been deafening. He told me Mom and Dad tried everything. Excuses, half-truths, saying it was a deal they couldn't pass up, insisting they didn't think Emily would even notice, like my daughter didn't have eyes, like she didn't have a heart, like the wound they caused was somehow my fault for raising a kid who felt things. I finally told him the whole truth, the truth nobody else knew. I've been paying their phone bill for 5 years, Matt. He didn't respond at first. I could almost hear something shifting inside him, gears turning, realizations clicking into place. They told me they couldn't afford anything for Emily, I said, and the next day they posted those phones with bows like some Christmas miracle for their favorite grandbabies. Matt exhaled slowly. Yeah, he said, voice steady and flat. That's not okay. We didn't need to say more. We were never the kind of siblings who needed long explanations. When something mattered, we understood each other without the fluff. 3 days later, I learned what he had done. Not from him, but from the fallout. Mom called again. Sweeter this time. We're just checking on you and Emily. We want things to be better. We're rethinking our priorities. Translation. They realized Matt wasn't on their side. Because that morning, Matt had called them and said he, his wife, and their kids weren't coming for Christmas. No road trip, no family dinner, no presents, nothing. And when they tried to guilt him, he told them the truth. Until they made things right with me and Emily, they wouldn't be seeing his sons either. They didn't take it well. Mom accused him of turning against the family. Dad insisted I was poisoning everyone. Lisa sent him a long text about how cruel it is to cut off Christmas from innocent children. But Matt didn't bend. Instead, he packed up every gift my parents had already sent for his kids, every last one, and mailed them back with a note inside. Let's take a break from pretending this is normal. They received the box on a Thursday morning. My phone lit up like a fire alarm. Mom called 3 times. Dad left a voicemail saying he was disappointed in who I've become. Lisa texted a paragraph accusing me of destroying the family dynamic. Then came the voicemail from Mom, the one where her voice shook. You've turned your brother against us. You've succeeded. I hope it was worth it. Worth it? The cost of protecting my daughter. The cost of standing up after years of being the family's emotional sponge and financial backup. The cost of saying no after years of saying, it's fine. Maybe it was worth it. Maybe it was overdue. But they weren't done yet. A few days later, Lisa tried again, this time targeting Matt. She left him a voice message saying I was emotionally dangerous, that I always had patterns, that he needed to stop enabling me. She actually said Emily must have been manipulated into feeling left out, as if an 8-year-old needed coaching to be hurt, that her grandparents bought iPhones for cousins and nothing for her. Matt called me that night. His voice was tight, edged with a kind of anger I'd never heard from him. "I'm done," he said. "Not just with them. With Lisa, too. I'm done pretending this is just how families work." That sentence, "I'm done pretending," felt like air after suffocation. And then he told me something that made the world tilt just a little. He was going to handle things his own way. The next morning, he told our parents directly, unless they apologized to me sincerely, no excuses, no justifications, they wouldn't see him or his kids for the rest of the year. Not birthdays, not Easter, not even a backyard barbecue. He was closing his gates too. By then, the house felt unnervingly quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that comes before some new shift, some new strategy, some new manipulation. And I could feel it coming. Because my parents hate losing control. And losing both of their children? That was a threat they didn't know how to survive. After Matt delivered that ultimatum, the air around the whole situation changed. My parents weren't just angry anymore. They were destabilized. They had lost their audience, their favorite child, their built-in defenders. And when people like them feel the walls closing in, they scramble for new exits. The first sign came through Lisa. "We all make mistakes, Linda. Don't let one misunderstanding blow up the family," she texted, as if this were a sitcom argument about borrowed clothes, not 5 years of financial exploitation and a granddaughter left out on Christmas. I didn't answer. I didn't owe her an answer. A few hours later, I got a screenshot from Matt. It was a message from Lisa to him, a long, breathless rant accusing me of turning the family against her, of instigating discord, of punishing innocent children, and of letting jealousy take over the holiday spirit. That phrase, jealousy, kept coming up like they were reading from the same script. They always used it when they wanted to erase the real issue. It would have been almost funny if it didn't sting every time they tried to rewrite what actually happened. Then came the real twist. Mom and Lisa had a late-night call. During that call, Mom told Lisa I had gone into a spiral. She said I had always been obsessed with fairness, that I couldn't handle other people being happy, and that now I had dragged Matt into my latest breakdown. Latest breakdown. Like the years of silence, the swallowed feelings, the swallowed disappointments, all of it existed only in the imagination of the child they'd trained to keep quiet. But Lisa didn't see the manipulation. She saw validation, a storyline that painted her as innocent and me as the unstable antagonist. And when people like her find a narrative that protects their ego, they cling to it like a lifeline. Mom doubled down. She told Matt if he didn't come for Christmas, they might have to step back from his family. In other words, threaten to withdraw affection from his kids. She framed it with exhaustion and martyrdom. We're tired of being treated like villains. Maybe it's time we focus on people who appreciate us. It was chess, but Matt wasn't playing. He boxed up every single gift my parents had already sent for his boys, the early shipped toys, the clothes, the stuff Mom loved to brag about, and mailed it all back. Everything. Inside the box, he left a handwritten note. "Let's take a break from pretending this is normal." I still think about that moment, about how powerful it is when someone who spent years avoiding drama finally reaches their breaking point. They received the box on a Thursday morning. Mom didn't send a text. She called 3 times back to back. I let them ring out. The 4th time, she left a voicemail, her voice trembling between rage and something that sounded like panic. "You've turned your brother against us. You've succeeded. I hope it was worth it." Worth it. They kept using that word, as if protecting my child, my sanity, and my dignity were petty acts of revenge instead of long overdue boundaries. The silence that followed was eerie, a vacuum where their voices used to fill every corner of my mind. But in that silence, something else grew, something steady, something like resolve. Then, just as I began to settle into that stillness, Matt called again. "You should hear the voicemails they're leaving me," he said. There was a grim humor in his tone, like he couldn't believe our parents were unraveling this publicly. "They're losing it, Linda. They're trying every angle." I believed him, because I knew how they operated. When they lose control of the story, they don't change. They just escalate. Then Lisa stepped in again. This time, she left him a voicemail saying I was emotionally dangerous, that I had a pattern of this kind of behavior, and that he needed to stop enabling my instability. She even said I had manipulated Emily into feeling hurt. My 8-year-old. Manipulated into being sad she got nothing while her cousins got brand new iPhones. They were running out of excuses, so they reached for delusions. Matt didn't argue. He didn't yell. He just went quiet, a kind of quiet that meant the bridge between him and Lisa had finally burned through. "I'm done," he said. "Not just with Mom and Dad, with Lisa too. I'm done with all of it." I felt something unclench in my chest. A truth surfaced that we had both spent years avoiding. We'd always been the ones holding everyone else up, and we were both tired. Then he said something that stuck with me for days. They weren't scared of losing you. They're scared of losing their version of the family. And he was right. They didn't want harmony. They wanted management. They didn't want accountability. They wanted obedience. They didn't want repair. They wanted control. The next morning, he called our parents and told them, calmly, firmly, that unless they apologized to me directly, sincerely, and without conditions, they wouldn't be seeing him or his children for the rest of the year. Not Christmas, not birthdays, not summer. No more performances. No more pretending. After that, my phone went quiet. Completely quiet. A silence thick enough to feel intentional, heavy enough to mean something was shifting behind the scenes again. Because my parents don't disappear. They regroup. And I knew, with a cold certainty deep in my stomach, that their next move was already forming. The quiet that followed Matt's ultimatum wasn't normal silence. It was the kind that happens before a storm shifts direction. My parents weren't the type to surrender. They were the type to strategize. So when they finally reached out again, the message was almost suspiciously simple. "Can we come talk? We'd like to see you and Emily. No games, no pressure, just us, please. No Lisa, no guilt." It sounded too clean. But curiosity, not trust, made me text back, Saturday at 3. I didn't tell Emily. I wasn't going to risk her waiting for people who might never show up. When Saturday arrived, they pulled up exactly on time. I watched from behind the curtain, and my stomach dropped. They brought Lisa. Just like that, the lie surfaced before the door even opened. When I finally did open it, Mom stood there with this too bright, too cheerful smile, holding a casserole like it was Thanksgiving. Dad nodded like we were greeting neighbors. Lisa stepped in behind them with her arms crossed, face tight, like she'd been dragged there against her will but wanted credit for attending. The moment they walked into my living room, I felt the energy of the space shift. They sat down without asking, rearranged themselves like they owned the place, and Mom immediately launched into her rehearsed monologue. "We've been doing a lot of thinking," she began, using a softened tone that was supposed to sound reflective. "We realize mistakes were made. Mistakes were made, a passive phrase. A phrase with no subject. A phrase that admits nothing and apologizes for nothing." Dad jumped in next, talking about how hard parenting is, how love doesn't always look even, how family dynamics are complicated. He never once said, "We were wrong." He said misunderstanding 4 times. Miscommunication twice. Not once did he say, "We hurt you." Lisa crossed her legs, leaned back, and added her own commentary. "I feel like I'm being dragged into resentment that has nothing to do with me," she said. "My kids shouldn't be punished because you're upset. And honestly, Linda, we saved all year for their gifts. You can't expect us to apologize for having more money." Her tone was flat, dismissive, not a trace of empathy. In her world, fairness was an inconvenience. I didn't respond right away. I didn't trust my voice yet. I made eye contact with her, then with my parents. All I saw were people trying to salvage their narrative, not the damage they caused. Then Emily stepped into the hallway. She stood quietly, clutching a stuffed animal, listening. She didn't interrupt. She just watched these adults talk circles around responsibility, like it was optional. And when Lisa said, "Maybe it's time to let go of the drama," my daughter turned around and walked back into her room without a word. Something inside me snapped in a way that felt painfully calm. I stood. "This visit is over," I said. Mom blinked, startled. "What? Honey, we're trying—" "No," I said. "You're trying to clear your name, not to fix anything. That's not the same." Dad opened his mouth, maybe to defend himself, maybe to deflect again, but I didn't give him the chance. "You lied," I said. "You said you wanted to talk. You brought Lisa. You came here to perform, not repair." The room stilled. They didn't move immediately. They were waiting for the old version of me, the Linda who second-guessed everything, who apologized for existing, who softened every boundary until it dissolved. But she wasn't here anymore. I walked to the door, opened it, and waited. One by one they stood. Mom looked hurt. Dad looked offended. Lisa didn't look at me at all, like she was embarrassed to be dismissed. They walked out without another word. As soon as the latch clicked, something loosened in my chest. Not satisfaction, but a quiet kind of grief for a family I finally realized I could never have. But the fallout wasn't done. That night, Matt called. "Got an interesting message from Lisa," he said. "She says you're still playing victim. She says you kicked everyone out for no reason." I told him everything. He didn't interrupt. He didn't question. When I finished, he took a long breath. "I'll handle it," he said. And I knew he meant it. 3 days later, our parents got a registered letter from him. Not a call, not a text, but a formal envelope delivered to their doorstep. Inside were 3 points, written in Matt's clipped, deliberate handwriting. 1. They were not to contact his children until they apologized to me directly and privately, sincerely, with no excuses. 2. He and his wife had updated their will. If something happened to them, guardianship would go to me, not our parents, not Lisa. 3. Until they stopped treating their relationship with me like a favor they granted or withheld, they were out of his life. No birthdays, no holidays, no visits. No access, no control. The next day, Mom called my phone. I didn't pick up. Then came a text. "We need to talk alone. Just us, please. No one else." For the first time in a long time, something about the message felt different. Not soft, not manipulative, just hollow, like people finally confronting the edges of their own behavior. But I didn't let myself believe anything yet. Instead, I waited. And the following Saturday, when I opened my front door, my parents stood there again. No casserole, no makeup smiles, no Lisa. This time, my dad was holding something I never expected to see again. A folded piece of faded construction paper. A drawing I made when I was 7. 4 stick figures holding balloons under a crooked sun. The title written in shaky second-grade handwriting. Me and my family. They had kept it. And that, more than any apology they could have rehearsed, made something shift inside me. "Can we come in?" Dad asked, his voice lower than I'd heard it in years. I stepped aside. They stepped inside slowly, like people walking into a memory they weren't sure they were welcome in. My dad held the little drawing so gently it didn't match the man who'd yelled at me days earlier. My mom's eyes were already wet, not the performative kind of crying she used when she wanted sympathy. This was quieter, smaller, as if she finally realized how fragile everything had become. They didn't sit at first. They stood in the middle of my living room, glancing around like they were afraid to disturb anything. My mom was the one who finally spoke. "We screwed up," she said. No warm-up, no excuses, just those 3 words, raw and trembling. My dad swallowed hard, staring at that childhood drawing as if he were trying to remember the little girl who made it. My mom opened her purse and pulled out a tiny box. Inside was a cheap, heart-shaped necklace I gave her when I was 12, the kind sold at gas stations, silver paint already peeling. She held it in her hand like it was something priceless. "I found this in my drawer this morning," she said. "You were so proud when you gave it to me, and I realize I haven't been proud of you in the ways that mattered, not for a long time. I'm sorry, Linda, for all of it, not just Christmas." For the first time, they weren't trying to reshape the narrative. They weren't trying to explain away their behavior. They were just standing there, stripped down to whatever truth was left after the blame, the defending, the manipulation fell away. I didn't trust it, not entirely, but I listened. Dad finally looked up. "We thought you were the strong one," he said, voice cracking. "We thought you didn't need anything from us, and that was a mistake." He paused, breathing like each word took effort. "I'm sorry." I didn't speak right away. I didn't rush toward forgiveness. Instead, I let the weight of their words settle in the space between us. "I'm willing to give this a chance," I said finally. "But there are rules. No gifts meant to buy your way back in. No social media performances. No more surprises. And absolutely no Lisa involved in private conversations." They both nodded, quietly, without pushback, a sign something had shifted, at least for now. Over the next few weeks, they showed up differently. They came by for short visits, bringing nothing but photo albums and old stories. Emily warmed to them again, cautiously at first. She sat between them on the couch, flipping through pictures of me wearing paper crowns, Halloween costumes, crooked smiles. I watched her slowly uncoil around them, laughing softly as my mom pointed out old memories. It wasn't healed, it wasn't perfect, but it was something. Then Matt called with an idea. A small spring cookout in his backyard. Nothing big, just family. And yes, Lisa would be there. I hesitated. I could feel old alarm bells rattling in my chest. But Emily lit up at the mention of seeing her cousins, and there was a soft hope in her eyes I couldn't bring myself to crush. "We'll go," I told her. The cookout looked normal at first glance. Kids chasing each other in the grass, burgers sizzling, adults chatting in small clusters. Lisa stayed on her side of the yard. I stayed on mine. Polite distance. But something felt off. My parents were too cheerful, overly attentive, laughing too loudly at small jokes, smiling too tightly at onlookers. And at one point, I saw my mom pull Emily aside near the patio, showing her something on her phone and whispering. When I walked over, she quickly said, "Oh, just pictures, nothing important." Emily didn't seem upset, but she did look confused, like she wasn't sure if she'd done something wrong. Then I overheard my dad talking to one of Matt's neighbors. "We've really pulled the family back together," he bragged. "It was hard, but we convinced everyone to put their pride aside. We pulled the family together. We convinced everyone. We fixed it." It was the first crack in the illusion. A few minutes later, Lisa joined the conversation. She laughed and said, "At least Mom and Dad didn't give up on us." Us. It hit me then. This wasn't reconciliation. It was reclaiming. Reclaiming control. Reclaiming their image. Reclaiming the narrative where they were the center of gravity, the benevolent glue holding the family together. It was never about healing. It was about access. After the reunion, something in my chest wouldn't settle. I tried to brush it off. Maybe I was overanalyzing. Maybe they were just awkward after months of strain. But the truth has a way of resurfacing. 1 week later, Emily came home from school and placed a folded flyer in my hands, a glossy advertisement for a prestigious out-of-state summer camp, 5 weeks long, already filled out. "Emergency contact my mom, not me." I stared at it, my pulse going cold. "Who gave you this?" I asked. "Grandma," she whispered. "She said it was a surprise and that you'd be so happy." My throat tightened. Emily looked worried, like she'd done something wrong. I didn't yell, I didn't cry, I didn't rage. I called my parents. "Did you sign Emily up for this without telling me?" Silence. Then my mom said, softly but firmly, "We just thought it would be good for her. She needs space, and maybe you do too." That was all I needed to hear. Space. From me. Her mother. They were reasserting control the only way they knew how, by slipping decisions out of my hands and into theirs. I canceled the camp immediately. Then I blocked both of them. When I sat Emily down to explain, she didn't look surprised, just relieved, as if she already knew something about them wasn't safe, even if she couldn't name it yet. The very next day, Matt showed up at my door, furious. They'd tried the same thing with his boys, offering to pay private school tuition if he agreed to rebuild family routines. Another attempt at negotiating access in exchange for influence. He told them exactly where they could put that offer. They don't want a family, he told me. They want a system they can manage. Weeks passed. No calls, no texts, just a letter, a real physical letter from my parents. Pages of soft, vague language about wanting one last chance, wanting to be valuable to my family. Valuable, not loving, not present. Valuable. They had not changed. Not truly, not where it mattered. So I wrote back. They could see Emily occasionally in public places with me present. No secrets, no decisions, no gifts, no Lisa, no exceptions. Break the rules once, and it was over permanently. They agreed, because access was what they wanted all along. That summer we met once at a park. They brought sandwiches. They tried small talk. Emily played carefully, watching me for cues. I watched them too. Their smiles tight, their posture nervous, their attempts at closeness shallow and uncertain. And that's when I finally understood. Some families don't heal, some wounds don't close, some people don't change. Not where it counts. But boundaries can. I can. As I watched Emily run across the grass, brighter than she had been in months, something in me settled. The story didn't end with forgiveness. It ended with control. Finally mine.